This one from Malcolm disappoints me because he's not talking about reality. He's talking about the shit show. He's talking about the slave trading, the bondage, the bonded slavery, the bonded notes, the Reserve Bank. He's talking about poor people dipping into the state's pocket and then blaming it on the Reserve Bank instead of the poor people, because the federal government wants you poor and ignorant of God. It doesn't want you to know that you're a family estate. It doesn't want you to know that silver is the currency and the Reserve Bank note is the moneylender. And the moneylender maintains control of you through force of a gun. Pew, pew! Red flag, red flag. Malcolm here is lying to you. Malcolm is lying to you.
The Melbourne Cup is being run today, and there's another event anyone with a mortgage will be watching, the Reserve Bank meeting. Before today's decision on interest rates, the average monthly mortgage payment has increased more than $1,200 a month. So why does the Reserve Bank of Australia want to send people broke? We've been told it's all about inflation, yet very few news reports tell us the whole story. The RBA is trying to send people broke to fix the inflation the RBA created. There's a simple explanation for inflation. It happens when there's too much money chasing too few goods. And as a result, it drives up prices. The government's COVID lockdowns stopped production and wrecked supply chains, meaning there were less goods for money to chase. To compensate for the COVID lockdowns, shutting down businesses and employment, the Reserve Bank used electronic journal entries to create more than $500 billion out of thin air and handed it out as stimulus. The government and Reserve Bank created the perfect storm of too much money with too few goods on which to spend it. We're still living with the inflation that caused. $100 before COVID is only worth $85 in purchasing power now. Inflation is a tax on all of us. Now Labor is continuing to make it worse, handing out billions of dollars in subsidies and allowing millions of overseas arrivals, further driving up demand. Yet now the Reserve Bank says it can fix inflation. How? Raising interest rates so people have less money to spend. They hope that will take care of the too much money side of the inflation equation and send mortgage payers broke. In answering my questions in Senate estimates hearings, the Reserve Bank admitted to me that it's a blunt tool. That's the understatement of the year. The Reserve Bank is raising home borrowers' mortgage payments so that on average people have less money to spend, to try and fix the inflation they caused and that the Labor government keeps making worse. And they still say we should just trust the experts.
Remember? I got a tube, remember? Right, Malcolm? I'd like you to explain. I'd like you to explain, please, Malcolm. That says $1. That says Elizabeth II, 1952 to 2022, Australia. That says Australian kangaroo. That says 2023, sorry. 9999 silver. So Malcolm, please explain. Section 115 of the Constitution says what? Are you treating them like paupers because they don't have real money and they have to borrow from the state, who then puts them in bondage and then what? Fines them and revenue raises from them for borrowing from the state instead of using constitutional money that you never talk about, Malcolm. Well, why don't you talk about constitutional money ever, Malcolm? Ever? I mean, why don't you talk about kangaroos? Why don't you talk about the Queen? Why don't you talk about Australia? It's very, very, very obvious, isn't it, Malcolm, that You're borrowing money and you're the money lender, an administrator under a foreign line of authority that came from somewhere after the demise of the currency. The demise of the currency, Malcolm. So I'd like you to explain this Reserve Bank to the whole entire country and what you, as a government, did since 1973 under the Great Seal of Australia. See, it's pretty sad when your politicians work for the moneylender instead of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth. They're here to administer the debts like administrators of a company that's got minerals in the ground and agriculture and forests and fisheries and stuff, and is indissoluble federal. An indissoluble federal commonwealth, and the Queen came along and went, what? Oh, well, we'll build a new commonwealth. But let's ignore that Australian commonwealth. Let's turn Australia into a nation state and talk about Reserve Bank currencies instead of their constitutional money. All debts shall be payable in something real. Oh, I could say, all debts shall be payable in coffee beans. Dollars of what, Pauline? Dollars of what? Dollars of what, Malcolm? Dollars of what? Right? It's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious. And you sowed these seeds as a government in your own inept ignorance without being able to define a line of authority in God and your Anzac and those that founded and forged the Constitution. You all try to undermine right now. I wonder why, Pauline. I wonder why. You don't operate for that Constitution, you administer it. And the naked owner of that Constitution stood forward and defined themselves on the courtroom record and showed you real wealth. Not borrowed state funds, Pauline. So why does Malcolm lie, Pauline? Why is Malcolm playing the game instead of telling the truth?